Well, hello and welcome back to the DC UK podcast. I'm just going to double check I've got everything correct on my audio, and I do, which is great. This is season 6 and it is episode 11. And as always, I'm your host, James Graham. Welcome back to the show. It is great to be back for the second week in a row. It's been a while since I've done 2 in a row, After last week with Angus, it was a great episode. It was a marathon of an episode. And if you haven't tuned into that one, please do go and check it out. It was a great episode. Thank you to Angus for coming on that show. It is a bit of a special time for me because this is 6 years to the day since I went to my first game in DC. 6 years to the day. And it's also my dad's birthday as well. So happy birthday, Dad. Yeah, 6 years ago, back in 2018, we went on a family holiday to Orlando and we ended up there. It was beautiful, glorious weather, a bit humid. Coming from the north, wasn't too comfortable, shall we say, with the temperatures out there. But we got through it. We did it. And whilst we were planning the trip and everything was going on, I thought, I wonder, and this is before DC actually announced that Wayne Rooney was signing for the club. I thought, I wonder if we've got any games happening when we're out there. So I took a look, and my brother-in-law, he was looking at Orlando City, seeing if there was any games there, which I can't remember if there was, but I don't think there were. But yeah, anyway, I thought I'm going to take a cheeky look at DC, see if there's anything happening. And lo and behold, there was. So me and my wife, we took a little trip away with the permission of my dad because it was over his birthday. We took a little trip up to DC for a few days and then flew back down to Orlando before we flew back home. And man, that was a hell of a trip. A hell of a trip. We ended up having to leave our apartment, our little place that we were staying in Orlando in the very, very early hours of the morning. The times I'm used to staying up till watching the games over here. We left. We asked the security guy, because it was a gated community, if it was okay to get an Uber and have them come pick us up from the place we were staying. And they were like, yeah, that's fine. Not a problem. We ordered the Uber. We could see on the app the Uber driver is coming up to the gate community, gets to the gate, and he gets stuck at the gate. Now, being from the UK and having my UK phone, so I had my phone, I had the Uber app, but only had a UK number. So obviously, when the Uber driver tries ringing, it's not coming through to me all that well. So that was a bit of a kerfuffle, bit of an issue. We eventually thought we're gonna have to start walking to the gate because he's gonna turn around otherwise. And it's like a 2.5 mile walk at like 2-3 o'clock in the morning. It's not what you want to be doing at that sort of time of day. He does drive off. And we're like, oh. But thankfully with Uber at that point, it just automatically ordered a brand new one. I say a brand new Uber, a new Uber driver. He comes up and I sent a message on the app saying, I'm from the UK. I've only got a UK number. Calls aren't going to come through to us. So please message me on here. He stays at the gate. We eventually get there, arrive, and the driver, bless him, he's like, yeah, the security guard is absolutely pissed. He is drunk. He's been drinking. So we eventually get through, drive to whichever, I can't remember the name of the airport, but we get to the airport. We've got like an hour before the flight is due to leave. Then we have to go through security and all that jazz, get through, get on the monorail. We missed the first one, get on the monorail, get there. And my other half, she's like, gotta go. So I end up sprinting from the monorail to the gate, which is 9 million feet. Get to the gate, and they're like, "Mr. Graham?" I'm like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Where's the other person?" I turn around, wife's coming in. Sorry for this. Um, we arrive, and they're like, "Yeah, we were about to shut the gate. You had about 10 seconds before we were going to do that." So we could just arrive in the nick of time. So we get there, get on the plane. You know when you can feel the daggers. Daggers were properly on us. But we get down, sat down, fly over. Nice 2-hour flight up to DC. Arrived there like 8:30 in the morning. And we've got a nice full day ahead of us. Lost Dog Cafe. Great place if you've never been. We went to the one in Arlington. Beautiful, beautiful place. Did the sites, tours. We just took everything in. Fell in love with the city straight away. And then we get to the big day. 6 years ago, go to the Screaming Eagles tailgate. Everyone's beautiful, everyone's lovely, and just it was such a good atmosphere and such a great place to be around. It's what kind of ignited my need to give something back to this club and the community, and to do this podcast. I'd done podcasts before. There was the MLS UK show that just started that year, as well, and I was just like, I need to do something. I need to do something. I want to share my thoughts and my opinions and see where that takes me. But it's a game against Philadelphia Union. We lose 2-0. It doesn't dampen any spirits. They were doing you tweeting a picture to the club account. They put up on the big scoreboard. That is up on there, and just absolutely loving life. I'm just wondering if I can bring that picture up that we had up on the scoreboard. I don't think I've got it, but there's me. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll be seeing a picture of me. But there's just me outside the stadium, loving life, and I'm just like, I'm actually here. I cannot believe it. I've got my DC shirt on, and it's just that day. I just have so many good memories, even though we got beat. And you can say I went down to where the tunnel is, and I get to see Wayne Rooney very up close, which is crazy. You see, again, if you're on YouTube, you'll see this little particular character here, Mr. Chris Hull, absolute legend. Spoken to him many, many times, and if you are listening to the show, Chris, please do reach out. I want to have that chat with you, and I actually want to get you on the show, because that would be an absolute epic episode to listen to you and chat to you about your time in DC and actually how you feel about it now and how you feel the club is doing as well. So please, we'll have to do that at some point. And yeah, it was just such a good time. And in 2019 rolls around, I start doing this show, and look where we are now, 6th season in. I know it's been a little bit rough over the last maybe 12 months or so. Not getting as consistent as I would like to have been, but we're getting back to it. We're getting the passion back. And I love speaking to you guys. It's always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. So before we move any further, that's just a little trip down memory lane for the first 10 minutes of the episode. But we've got obviously some news to go through. There's been some transfer rumors over here in the UK. We're getting close to the summer window closing. So there's been a couple of links there as well. We've got some news about international call-ups as well, which also affects us and our game against Chicago. So I'll talk about those briefly. We'll then have a look back at the Dallas game as well, which was an absolute whirlwind of a game. Unbelievable stuff happening. And then we'll have a look ahead to the game this weekend against Toronto. And then if you've got any questions, please do send them in. I've got one, not as a question as such, but a little discussion topic as well, which is something I would be doing anyway. But it was always nice to actually have that come in, and a good thing to be able to talk about as well. So without further ado, let's head to the news. It's the news. And yeah, as mentioned, it's been 6 years since I've been. It's always going to be a talking point for me at this time of year. It's actually we've been able to do it on the actual day. Never thought about that. Wonder whether we'll still be doing this particular podcast when it comes to 10 years. It'll be nice. So yeah, Benteke, big news over the last week, has signed an extension. You may have seen on the website and on the DC United socials, and obviously my socials as well. He has signed a contract extension through till the end of next season, which is great because his current contract was due to end this year. We had the option for next year, but rather than just exercising the option, we've actually gone and given an extra year with an option for 2026. So, this is always going to happen when you've got a guy who's currently on 17 goals for the season. It's great to have someone who's been so consistent in front of goal, and he's the eighth player to have actually got back-to-back double digits in terms of goals in seasons. So, yeah, only the eighth player to have done that for DC. And to think how long the club's been around, I would say that's a pretty good feat to be able to do that. Consistency, something that we've lacked up top for a long time. And it's nice that we've actually got at least another 12 months, maybe it's another 24 months out of him as well. Now, I talked about, obviously, the UK window and predominantly Europe as well. The window is shutting very, very soon. So there's going to be transfers and a lot of things happening. And first up is Christian Fletcher, who I want to make sure I've got this right from the press conference that Troy gave today. Sounds like he's over here in the UK. He's not played recently, but there's a lot of rumours of him joining Nottingham Forest here in the UK on a loan deal to start off with. Whether that looks and moves into a permanent deal, that's yet to be seen. But primarily, he'll be playing in the U21s league, and that'll be good for him. And he's an exciting player. He's got great potential. I would love to see him here for a couple of more years if I'm being greedy. But when an opportunity like this comes along to join a Premier League team, you're not going to turn that down, really, are you? I'd be disappointed if you turn that down. So I'm not surprised it's happening. Sad to see him go if he does go, but we'll find out in the next couple of days whether that actually materializes or not. But then also on top of that, rumors have come out, and this is a tweet from Tom Boga today from an article from GiveMeSport.com that Matai Akambone has been linked and had a bid turned down from Bournemouth. Again, another Premier League team. Not Premier League, aren't they? Yeah. Really should know that off the top of my head. Yeah. My team's not in the Premier League, so I'm gonna say that. Yeah, so but the bid that Bournemouth gave was definitely below our valuation of Matai Akambone. So we'll see whether that ends up whether having a new bid come in for him and what happens from there. Again, I'd be sad to see him go, but he has been linked and had trials across Europe in his career so far. And that would be great to see him actually spend some time abroad, realize his potential, and become the player that we all know that he can be. Because so far, he's been very, very good. And I spoke about with Angus last week about what my ideal lineup would be right now, which is something we're going to need to talk about coming up as well, because things have happened. Yeah, it's just Akamboni would definitely be in there as a possible regular starter for me. So to have him leave would be sad, but we do have cover in Garrison Tubbs as well. You know, there's potential for others to come in and step up. Let's put it that way. Obviously, we lost Steve Birnbaum at the start of the year. Also, Russell Canouse, who can play at centre back as well. He's out injured. Wouldn't want really him playing centre back too often, but he can do it. So yeah, that's it's a sad situation for us from a player's perspective, from a personal perspective, great for them too. Then talks about international and players being called up, which is always brilliant to see. Obviously, Borisy now got called up for Cameroon. You've got Marty Patola being called up for Finland, who they coming up against England in this next international window. Aaron Herrera has been called up for Guatemala, and Jeremy Garay has been called up for El Salvador. Now, that's a few players that have been called up, and it's a frustration because they're going to be missing the Chicago Fire game because MLS, in their infinite wisdom, thought it'd be good to schedule games when there's internationals happening. MLS, what the actual shit are you thinking about doing that? Just don't do it. You don't do that. You don't schedule league games when there's internationals happening. Not the first time, not the last time, but they'll go, well, we had the Leagues Cup. And it's, don't have the Leagues Cup. League games can be spread over a longer period. Fully enough, can avoid international windows, believe it or not. But no, we've got to go and money grab because the Leagues Cup generates so much money and generates great crowds for every single game. Tell them annoyed. You can tell them annoyed. So yeah, those are the key headlines from the last week in the DC news. That's pretty much it. We're going to move on to looking at the game from last weekend, a game that I unfortunately could not watch live. I nearly did, but I was away for the weekend. It was bank holiday weekend over here in the UK, so I went to see family, and some of my family got to meet my little newborn for the first time, which was beautiful. So we spent some time having a nice little breakaway and spend 6 hours driving back in the car because Leeds Festival decided to all escape at the same time as we thought we'd go home. So that was fun. But yeah, we'll have a little chat about the Darts game in just a moment. So yeah, FC Dallas, what a game. So yeah, as I've just mentioned, didn't actually get to see this one live because I was away, but obviously caught up with the highlights. Just seemed like so much happened in that first half. Just wow. I'm just going to bring it up on, as I've done previously, going to bring it up on screen. And it's just like, what the heck happened? Benteke scoring the first goal within just in over a minute of play. Absolutely brilliant. Thought, that's a great start. But then they equalize. They then take the lead 2-1. They then extend that through to 3-1. Paul Ariola, obvious player who used to play for us and was great when he was in the black and red. Left under certain circumstances when Hernan Losada was involved with the club. And you know what? It was just meant to be, wasn't it? He'd come back and actually score against us. But then Schnegg getting his goal on his MLS debut, which is fantastic. And then just a matter of 5 minutes later, Boris then gets sent off for his second bookable offense. Now, the highlights didn't show what the first card was for. And from speaking to people, it was not a deserved yellow card. Obviously, I've spoken to DC fans, and you're always going to get slightly biased. But for a tackle where he wins the ball and ends up injured, on the face of it, it sounds like it wasn't a deserved yellow card. But again, DC fans going to be biased. Highlights didn't show it. I'd have to go and see the full game to go and actually see what happened there. Then the second half rolls around. They then they then went 4-1, 4-2 up in the 44th minute. So they scored all their goals in the first half. So first half ended 4-2 to Dallas. You're down to 10 men. It's looking like it's not going to go your way. You think, right, okay, that's pretty much it. But then Jared Stroud, who gave the ball away, which led to the fourth goal, ends up scoring. And you're thinking, this feels like the Mazatlan game all over again. We've been given hope. There's been chances. There's been efforts. But you just can't break that final goal down. And we lose 4-3. So it's a 7-goal game, which is always an entertaining game to watch. And you look at the stats, very even on the possession side, which is surprising considering we were down to 10 men. Normally you start seeing the team with the more players looking at more towards 58, 59, 60 plus % possession. Then the total amount of efforts on goal, we had more. They had more on target. We had a lot more blocked. You can see, considering on paper, and we know games aren't played on paper. We all know that, but it looks like we actually had a pretty good game, and that's something that has been said in the press conferences as well. That there was a lot of heart and a lot of drive to actually get through this. But again, it's another match where we've got a red card. Now, if there's like 1 or 2 red cards that were dubious, you'd go, something seems a little bit off there with the referee. But now, when you've got so many red cards, I'm just going to bring up the stats here as well for club stats of the red cards. 7 red cards this season with 76 yellows. So we're the worst team for discipline right now in the league, and almost the worst amount of fouls committed. There's just something not right there. The team aren't disciplined enough to choose when to tackle, and there's just, something has to change there. Something has to change very quickly. And it's something that has been pointed out. The Saint is aware of it. But that needs to change fast. Otherwise, we're just going to keep shooting ourselves in the foot. And this season is going to go from being, we know it's a transitional season and it's going to be tricky, to a season where we look at the standings. We're currently joint bottom with many other teams, bearing in mind. We've got 4 teams all on 26. But it's going to get close to being, it's going to be a horrible season again. Granted, it's not as bad as St. Louis or San Jose right now, but we're bottom of the East yet again. So, not particularly ideal, shall we say. Moving on, though, your referee Sergei Boyko, from what I heard, he was awful, which is kind of the standard for MLS at the moment. Pro referees are just not particularly great. I want to go back to the refs that we had. I know they were called scab refs, and they were just refereeing for getting the money, and there was obviously the issue with the MLS Referees Association as well. But it felt like they made some decent decisions and actually used VAR more, but for the right reasons. So, were they the better refs? Yes and no. So yeah, that was that. That was the game. We've picked up a suspension, which means Boris is out of the game against Dallas this weekend. But also, there's been a couple of injuries as well. So we're going to move on to the game against Toronto this weekend, which is on Apple TV for free this week, which is nice for those of you who aren't subscribed to the MLS Season Pass. You can tune in without paying anything extra. So good on you for that. Get yourselves tuned in. But yeah, before I go into much about the game, I want to go through sort of the press conference stuff. So, press conference wise, Troy was obviously he does a press conference before each game and after each game. But we were looking at it, and he was talking about obviously without several players this weekend. Sounded like Fletcher was currently away in England, so we're not going to be with him. I doubt he would be if he's been traveling. He's going to be in any way, shape, or form ready to just hit the pitch, hit the field for 90 minutes. Dominic Bargy has not seen as many minutes as he would have liked because he's been battling injuries. He's focused on the team discipline and improving that. Citing that there's been too many matches where we've played with 10 men too often due to red cards. And yeah, I don't think we've had a game where we've had double red cards where we've been down to 9 men. So when you look at 25, more than 25% of the games that we've played so far this season have been where we've been down to 10 men. That's a stat. That is a stat. You're not doing yourselves any favors when you get someone sent off. It becomes so much more difficult. Yeah. Anyway, moving back to the press conference. The upcoming identify this as being a key match because obviously both teams are vying for playoff spots. We're vying to try and get into the play-in, into the wild card game. But Toronto are vying to get into the main rounds of the playoffs. They are only 1 point away from Orlando at the moment in this Eastern Conference in 7th place. So they want to get into that. They don't really have much chance of getting a home tie in the playoffs, but they could get through to the main section and not have to go through the wild card match. Us, on the other hand, we are 2 points away still somehow. So while the teams around us gain points and actually moved above us, Atlanta, who are currently in 9th place in the league, haven't moved anywhere. So we're still only 2 points away from a wild card. We're now 7 points away from Toronto. But that also means we win this, we then move only to 4 points behind them, and then suddenly things will look a lot different. So I'm excited about that. We are on the road. It is Alex Bono's first time in Toronto since leaving. So it'll be interesting to see what kind of reception he gets. But, we're going. We're going over to Canada. Going across the border. Troy also praised Akamboni as well for his maturity and development so far this season. He was asked about that as well. So, yeah. Interesting. So let's just go back to head-to-head wise. So this is the 43rd meeting between the two teams in the MLS regular season. Toronto have won 13. There's been 12 draws, and DC United have won 17 times. More recently, there's been a 2-2 draw earlier on this season on June 2nd. Last season, we got beat on the road 2-1, but we beat them 3-2 in that epic game. I hope you guys remember that, where Ted Kujapietro scored in added time. It went absolutely bonkers. I think it was the opening game of the season, and it was just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. And you look head-to-head wise in terms of stats so far this season, we are looking like we'll probably end up having more shots than they do. For some reason, it doesn't have possession stats, which is a bit weird. It used to. I don't know where that's gone. But they will provide more passes, so it sounds like they will have more of the ball when it comes to the game this weekend. And yeah, I think it's going to be Going to be a close game. Red cards, 0.2 to 0.3. So if we go back to the stats for the club, Toronto are not far off in terms of discipline from us as well. So this could be a game with a red card, and it could be a game where it's going to be, unfortunately, stop start. So if you look at the total amount of fouls given, they're not far off, 366 to 335 in that. We've had more. So, yeah, so this game could be a game where it is very, very stop start. I mean, look at that, 26 fouls. It's a free kick every nearly 3 minutes. So I expect the referee having plenty of work to do. Which again proves for a bit of an excitement if there is red cards, and depends on how the ref lays down his law, whether he gets books someone early doors to show everyone who's boss. We'll see. We shall see. So let's have a look at Toronto in more detail. So they've recently this year signed Mighty Longstaff, which is an interesting signing. In terms of designated players, the two key guys in Federico Bernardeschi and Lorenzo Insigne. Two players who previously not had the best of relationships off the pitch or even on the pitch, to be fair. But yeah, they are two incredibly good players. And then you got Jonathan Osorio as well in terms of their DPs. Plenty of homegrowns there and a few internationals. But then you look at, they don't really have any they don't have any U22 initiative players. They don't have any Generation Adidas players. So it is primarily homegrowns, a few internationals, and those DPs that they've got. Now, we look at the players that they've got. Derek Etienne Jr., great little player there. Scored against us earlier on this season. They've obviously got a great keeper in Sean Johnson. So I'd imagine he'll be in between sticks this weekend. Richie Larea, another great player. DeAndre Kerr as well. He's actually not too bad. I've mentioned Mighty Longstaff. He's a pretty decent player for MLS level. And then you've got Greg Ranjit Singh as well as a backup keeper. They've got some decent players. I feel like they should be doing better than where they are right now. I do feel that, but they're not. So, hey ho. They're in 8th. They've had 10 wins, 14 defeats, but only 3 draws. Scored 35 goals and conceded 47. So the goal difference isn't great. It's pretty poor, if we're going to be honest. We've scored 38, conceded 54, so we've conceded far too many goals. But it's actually not far off Toronto's. It's just the fact that we've had a heck of a lot more draws. We've had 8 draws so far this season. If those were converted to wins, we'd have another 8 points. We'd be on 34. We'd be above them. So it just goes to show the power of winning games rather than drawing and having those few extra defeats. It's the power. Wins talk. Wins absolutely talk. We look at the form guide. And we look at Toronto's current form at the moment, where they've won 3 out of the last 4 games. They've had a good uptick in form, but they did, before that, go through a barren spell where they were getting beat. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 defeats in 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 in 9 games. 7 defeats in 9. It's an incredibly bad run. Similar to obviously the bad run that we had, and pretty much similar sort of timing as well. Yeah, very similar time. I was just came in a little bit sooner. We've had two wins in the last 3. See the most recent defeat coming against us. We've had that break for the Leagues Cup as well, which I think hindered us more than anything. If we look back on it, we had that good couple of wins, but we had a bit of a spell where we had a couple of weeks off. And I don't know whether that's just put a little bump in the road for us. Now, other bits I came out of today's press conference. As mentioned, Eno is out. He is suspended after picking up that red card against Dallas. Knaus and Hopkins are both out. Knaus has obviously been out for quite some time, but potentially back later on in the season for the last few games, which would be nice. Hopkins has been out for quite some time. He was due to come back, but then sprained his ankle last week. Schnegg, not one name I wanted to be saying right now, because since he had a pretty good game against Dallas and scored his first goal, he is out. He's out with a calf injury, and it sounds like it's going to be anywhere between 3 to 5 weeks he is out for. And if that is the case, he won't be back till October, which is a long time away. And that would mean he wouldn't be back until for the last 3 games of the season. So we're missing Schnegg for 5 games, 5 key games as well in our season. Not great, but it's the cards that we've been given, and it's what we got to deal with. It's what we have to deal with. McVeigh, though, has returned to training. He's questionable, but he's back in training. And then Jacob Murrell and Gabriel Pirani are day by day. So, there's a couple of positives there, but a major, major disappointment in the fact that Schnegg is out. Then we are missing Matty Patola, Boris Eno, Aaron Herrera, and Jeremy Garay for the game against Chicago. Really frustrated by that. Really, really frustrated. So yeah, there is that. In terms of what we need to win this game this weekend, 1, I'll get a man sent off. That's good. That's gonna be key. That's gonna be key. But also, who the heck are we going to play at left back? It's probably going to be Pedro Santos, I'd imagine. So I think we're probably going to be lining up pretty much the same sort of formation again, but it'll be 4-2-3-1, I reckon. Struck 4-3-3. You're going to be looking at Bono in goal, Herrera. Then you're going to be looking at Bartlett, probably Akamboni, possibly Tubbs, possibly McVeigh, Pedro Santos on left back, Jared Stroud on the right, Click and possibly Paltola. I don't know whether he'll been yet travelled over to Finland for their games. Probably not, but Matty Patola. And then you're going to be looking at the likes of, Jared Stroud on the right. It's probably going to be Takuji Piacho. I really don't want him to be playing right now because I don't think he really deserves it. I'd probably prefer to have Martin Rodriguez playing in behind Benteke. So Benteke up top, and then Dahome on the left. I think that's going to be the kind of plays that we should be expecting to play this weekend. It'll probably be different. I'll probably be completely wrong. And hey-ho. But in terms of prediction for this weekend, I feel like we'll probably get a draw. I would like a draw more than anything. Obviously, a win, obviously. But realistically, I think it will be a tie. Granted, as mentioned, Toronto don't really do ties this season, but I think that's how it's going to end up. I think there will be a red card. But I'm thinking 1-1. I'm thinking 1-1 this weekend. But happily be proved wrong if we win. Be happily proved wrong. So yeah, that's how I'm feeling. I want to hear your guys' thoughts out there in terms of your predictions. And if you have any ideas on what you would do, it'd be great to hear that. But before I move on to the final thought, this week I have got my cap on, my DC United. Ignore that thumbs down on screen. Thanks, Apple, uh, for giving me emoji. I'm gonna go back and then give it a thumbs up. There you go. We'll get it right. What the heck that's all about? I mean, sure. Do we do 2 thumbs ups and we get 2 thumbs? Oh, we get fireworks. So there you go. Yeah, very weird. I really need to turn that off. How do I turn that off? I don't want reactions. Yeah, there we go. That is so weird. Oh, anyway, that was slightly distracting. Apologies. But yeah, I have the cap on. So please do go ahead and go over to dcunitedkingdom.com/DCUK store to get yourself the latest merchandise that helps support the show in all ways, shapes, or forms. Of course, doing this podcast is not free. It does cost money, and anything that goes towards any of those costs is always appreciated. And if you don't want to do any merch, then please send in some donations. I'm not going to argue. Anything that would go towards cost is always highly appreciated, and I'll give you a thank you on the next episode. But yes, so I had a little discussion topic come in for this week's episode. I'm just going to double check, make sure there's no other questions that have come in. Yeah, we're good. So, Kevin, who's in DCK, we do have a Discord group. I really should advertise that a bit more. So, if you want to come and join in, let me know. I'll send you the server link for it. But he's just asked, he said, there's no specific question as such, but would love thoughts based on United's form and the remaining schedule for their path to the playoffs and a prediction of where we will finish. Now, let's go on to our schedule. Let's bring that back up on screen. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 games remaining. Now, as I mentioned, this game against Toronto, I think it'll be a draw. So that's 1 point. Chicago, we look at their form at the moment. It's hit and miss. 7 hours. Maybe so we could get a win there. Let's go for a win there. So that's 4 points. NYCFC. They're doing. Where are they at the moment in the league? They're 5th, so they're doing rather well. And granted, they never really do. No, to be fair, I already feel we'll do pretty decent against NYCFC. And their current form at the moment, they've not won in 1, 2. They've had 4 draws in a row. They've not won in the last 5, so they're hungry for that. They've got Columbus this weekend, so that's probably going to be at Columbus as well. So that's going to be probably a defeat for them. They're going to be thinking they're going to be able to win that and get back to winning ways. So it could be a tough fixture. Let's go for another draw there. So that's 1, 2, 5, 6. A draw against Philly. It's always a difficult one. Columbus are going to get beat by because they're doing incredibly good stuff at the moment. Possible win here because they're in the same position as us. 9, 12. Realistically, maximum of 12 points. So that would put us on 38 points, which is a maximum of 7th. Now, the next 12 points, I think, let's have a look at seasons gone by. 38. Where would that put us? Last season, that would put us in 14th. Season before that, second bottom. Third bottom. Third bottom. So realistically, we're probably not going to make the playoffs. That is the crux of it. That is the crux of it. We're leaving it too little, too late. Even with The fact that 9 teams qualify for the playoffs in each conference, it's probably going to be too little too late. And that's not the way I want to end the episode, but that is how it's going to end. Really frustrated to look at that and actually go, it's not how I want to. And I always want to have that hope that we can do it. And when I look at it, the fact that it's so tight and the fact that it's still so incredibly doable, I think we can. I've got that little bit of hope in me that we can do it. And I think we can. But my heart says yes. My head says, you're an idiot. 38 points has never qualified for playoffs in recent times. So be realistic, James. And that's not good. I don't want to be realistic. I want that blind optimism that you know me for, that you all know me for. So let's have some blind optimism. We're going to make the playoffs. Come on, let's have it. And the wise words of the great Delia Smith, let's be having you. Let's be having you. And what a way to end the episode. So we'll let it wrap it up there. Again, please do, if you got the time, get yourself some merch. If you want to become a DC UK member, please do drop me a DM or head over to dcnightKingdom.com. Go over to the membership area. And we'll hopefully see you for the game this weekend. All being well, there'll be a watch along. Fingers crossed. Unless I'm suddenly doing other stuff that I've forgotten about. But fingers crossed there will be a watch along. Come and join me for that. You'll have live reactions. And if you've never watched one before, I have the time in sync with how I'm watching it. So you can join in and have the same reactions as I do. It's a barrel of laughs. Great chat going on. So come and join me for that. See ya. Until next time. Vamos United.